Welcome, everyone, to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Victoria Roberts-Drogan. Thank you for joining us today. Vincent, over the years at Family Comes First, we've had the privilege of meeting some really extraordinary families.
Yes, absolutely. And one of these families is the Page family. Many of our viewers would love to get an update on Hedy and Eric Page, who are always up to something good.
Yeah, this show is going to be so special. We're going to welcome them back.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the pages of life, which they truly are.
That's right.
The pages of life, right here on Family Comes First. Back in 2009, we met with Eric and Hedy Page. They are both Holocaust survivors who came to America after surviving the unthinkable. Let's take a look.
So when the war started in June 1941, our town was in flames because the Germans were shooting from one end and the Russians were shooting from the other one. From the west, the Germans, from the east, the Russians. So we had to flee because our town was completely in flames. We were told not to go any further, but stay in a larger city because in the small towns, the Jews were picked up or surrounded there and killed right there. So we stayed there, and after about 2 or 3 weeks of German occupation, they divided the city into a Jewish quarter, and they called it the ghetto. And we stayed there close to 3 years. By the time we left from the ghetto, I was 18. And from the ghetto, they transferred us to a concentration camp called Stutthof. It's right on the Russian border, on this Polish border. And in that camp, the men were separated from the women. And that's the last place I saw my mother alive. From there, we were transported to Dachau.
We heard the Chancellor speaking on the radio, and he said, "Long live Austria." I don't remember his exact words. And then there was music, and my parents were very quiet. I wasn't allowed to go near the window, and the world felt dark. And I remember at that time the word Jude, which meant Jew in German, was very terrifying to me because it had been used with such venom. And when she said to Israelite children, it sort of gave me such a knowledge of what words can do. They're the N-word in America. And I always felt that we don't know people and then we can hurt them. And that was really what I learned from Eric. Because when people say to him, how could people do to others what they did to the Jews or to others? He always says, it's very easy. All you have to do is to consider them subhuman.
Did you know that your parents were Holocaust survivors when you were growing up? Joni, you want to first?
Oh, sure. I think I knew it from the moment I knew anything. You know, the Holocaust has been part of my growing up. It was part of my understanding of the world, I think, from my earliest years, because it was always like a dark cloud, off to the corner. And it shaped my view of the world. It shapes my view of who people are and what people are capable of. It shapes the work that I do.
Drawing was such a weapon for me because I had a teacher who believed everybody could draw. That was first, second, and third grade in Vienna. I just always tended to want to draw people. That if I show that people really exist, that they're each individuals, I only do real people, then prejudice would have to disappear if people could see real people.
We had a neighbor next door to us, and we became very friendly. And we went to their house, He said, Eric, how do you really feel about being in my home? Because you knew my background, and I did. He was on a U-boat during the war. And here's what I told him. I said, look, if you would have done something to me or anybody around it that I've seen, I said, you wouldn't be alive now. I said, but since I don't, if I discriminate to people just because of a nationality or a color, I would be just as low as they were. And I said, nobody would get me down to that level.
Victoria, this is really going to be special because I have never met more giving people in my life than Hedy and Eric Page.
Yeah.
They just meet people and share with them the gift of life, really, the gift of life. And we are going to update their story, which has been so fantastic when we did the show 6 years ago. I can't imagine it was that long ago. And so I want to welcome Hedy and Eric on the show and their daughter Joni. And we are so anxious to know what you've been up to because you're all about doing good. You're never about yourselves. You're always about doing good. So welcome.
Welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed because
that's good.
if we would think we're doing good, maybe we'd be afraid to do it because we failed.
No.
But what we've been doing, and this really goes back to many, many years ago, over 50 years ago, when we started to work in the prison system as volunteers. And then when Joni was in high school and we were working at Sing Sing, she became fascinated by the whole thing. And now she employs us without pay at the Fortune Society.
You're a bargain.
So you're doing volunteer work
Yeah.
as counselors.
And together, right?
And
Both of you do
together,
it
both.
together.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's in the city. You live out on Long Island. So what time do you get up in the morning?
It's only one day a week.
One
and
day.
Joni drives now because when Eric had pneumonia and then rehab and so on,
Right.
and he's a young man of 90.
Wow,
So-
90, just like my dad, Eric, just like my dad, 90 years old. God bless you.
So the driving became impossible.
So how did you start working in the prisons? What compelled you to want to do that?
My mother began, we lived in Oceanside at that time, and my mother began to work. She lived in Long Beach, and she began to work in the hospital as a volunteer. And both her parents had died in the Holocaust. And when people would ask her, why do you work so hard for something where you don't get paid? And she said, I couldn't do it for my parents, so I can do it for somebody else's. Because what really bothered her so was that nobody came to visit people.
Yes.
So she would go to nursing homes and visit people. And so when our youngest, Ken, became a kindergartner, I called the Red Cross and I said, at that time I was teaching art at home,
Yes.
privately. And I said, I'd like to work with children who have nothing, so they have a weapon in the world, because art for me was that.
Yes.
And when we were very poor, when we were refugees, I could trade drawings for things.
Yes.
And they said, we don't have anything with children, but we, for the first time, there's an opening in the Nassau County Jail for women. And if you would teach them art, it would be a wonderful thing, because this was in it was 50 years ago, and this is now 2015. And she said the only time they can leave their cell is with good behavior. They could work in the kitchen. And I came home, and we talked it over, and both Eric and I felt, why do you need art in prison? You might need a profession, learn, etc. But how could you say no? And it was the best teaching I have ever done. At that time, it was only minorities.
Yeah.
And it was people who were in for minor offenses, but offenses nonetheless. And it was wonderful. And then the drug world came in.
Yeah.
It was people who were not minorities who had had art classes and dance classes, but they were on drugs, so they were selling them. And I found out I couldn't teach anymore because they didn't know how to take an eraser and begin again.
Yeah.
I found out when I started studying whatever I could about drugs, that that's the main thing that happens.
You don't feel that you can start again?
No, you have lost somehow the ability to begin again. You're in this.
But then what happened was you heard about a program teaching decision making,
Exactly.
and the whole family went.
Yeah.
And
And
how long
we
ago was that?
That was 1972, I believe.
Whoa, a long time ago.
Right, because I was
So
in my
you-
last year of high school, and the whole family would go to
The
Sing
four
Sing.
of you. Wow.
Yeah, and my brother.
Yeah.
Yes, Ken was in it also.
I asked this question respectfully because you were in a concentration camp. How hard was it for you to go into a prison as a volunteer?
Not hard at all, because when I was in a concentration camp, or when I was locked up, nobody cared. So I figured at least we do something for some people who are in prison. And that was the reason, because nobody cared about me. That doesn't mean I don't care about others. That was the main reason, really.
But what was amazing was that the men we were working with recognized that he had a past that matched their past. And they would turn to him for feedback on how he built a family and how he got through the rage. And so there's a role my dad plays that none of us play, because he's lived through the kind of pain and rage that people in prison are living in. And so he has something to share, and he does.
And inspire.
Yeah.
And as a father figure, you had said, a man who they can look up to.
What we see, they volunteer at the Fortune Society with me now, and we work primarily with young men and older men, but they haven't had fathers in their lives, and they are fathers. And, my dad's a role model
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so is my mom. So the two of them together are counseling people, and it's just quite remarkable.
So we're gonna hear a lot more about the counseling, and I want to hear more about your work at the Fortune Society. So we're gonna take a quick break on Family Comes First, the Pages of Life.
Hi, I'm Todd Belisle, the president of the Center for Special Needs Trust Administration. At the center, we understand the importance of helping individuals, family members, and loved ones secure independent lifestyles. We are the nation's leading provider in trust administration services with regards to pool trust, community trust, third-party trust, and special needs trusts. The center also offers specific services for Medicare recipients who are receiving settlement proceeds. If you'd like to find out what the center can do for you or your loved one, please contact us today.
Welcome back to Family Comes First. Let's continue our journey with Hedy and Eric and Joni Page. The Pages of Life.
I love that title.
I know, it's perfect. Eric, you had told us a story from your counseling, which was so powerful. Would you tell that for our audience?
Being in a concentration camp or being incarcerated, where nobody cared about you. The surrounding area didn't care about you. Either they didn't want to know about it, or they didn't care about it. So either one reason why they had no contact with us. So we feel that we should give a little support to people who have been in prison. So when they come out, they're able to face life as it is today. Because if somebody has been in prison for 20 years, he doesn't know anything about television, colors, and life in general, because the speed of life and the speed of cars have increased so fast and so much that he's really way behind.
Tell about your conversation you had about that young man about anger.
Right.
Because I think how you've dealt with anger is really important.
This fellow wanted to talk to me. We had group sessions, and then he asked for a single session with me. Our group was convinced that I should do it. So I came in there with him, and we started to talk. He says, look, I know you've been incarcerated. I know you're Jewish. I know what you went through. But why do you come back here? So this is what I told him. I said, when I was incarcerated, nobody cared. And that's the reason why I'm here. And after about 2 or 3 sessions with him, he said, gee, I'm amazed that you could have raised a family normally. He says, I don't know how much I would be able to do something like this. So I told him, no, you do, and you can do it.
Right.
And I think I convinced him,
Yeah.
because we've never seen again.
Ah, that's
So he
great.
felt like he could go out and do it.
And then, Joni, there was another story with the man with rage. You want to
Yeah,
share
you know-
that story that your dad?
Yeah, you know,
was involved in.
we drive out to Long Island City from Long Island and come back, and they're careful not to break confidentiality.
Sure.
But a young man was talking to both of them, because they worked together, about having done something he was deeply ashamed of, lashing out in rage. And say what you said, Dad.
I said, look, you just came out of prison, and you got home, and your girlfriend or your wife was there with another man. So he says, I got so angry. The rage in me was so bad. So I went over there and I slapped her. And he says, you know, I can't forgive myself for it. He says, I don't know, but I just cannot forgive myself for it. So I said, look, you've been in prison. You've been tortured. You've been mistreated by the guards, and you took it as for granted that the mistreatment is normal life. So when you got home, you saw their wife with another man. I said, of course you lashed out. It's normal. But after considering it, I don't think you'll ever do it again.
Wow. Hedy, I have a question for you. I'm going to challenge you a little bit, which is, you live your life every day with joy. You have the greatest smile. You just light up a room. You make people feel good. Why is that important to you?
I guess we have to trace things back. When we were refugees in Panama, and we were very poor at that time, and we lived in a real slum, and my father would wake up in the morning, and he would drink his coffee, and he would say, but nobody in the world enjoys their first cup of coffee like I do. And it was sort of his temperament. And he had ups and downs, but whenever he was down, there would be that up. And I guess it sort of became part of who I am. And somebody once said to Eric, with all your past, you're the happiest man I know. So,
It's because he's married to you.
not if you ask him. he didn't have his hearing aid for a few days now. And he was so happy not to hear me.
Not at all.
But I have learned so much from them.
Sure.
So much.
You and your brother, right?
Me and my brother and my nephew.
Yeah.
But there was a point where Dad said something that just blew me away. He said, when I look at everything that happened in my life, the concentration camp and everything, and I look at where I am now, I wouldn't change a thing. And that just blew me away. And I think with both of them, their attitude toward life and toward giving and how to be in the world has shaped me, shaped my brother, and now is shaping our 14-year-old nephew and my godson in ways that they're now spreading more broadly than the family through the volunteer work.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's an amazing choice as to how to live.
You know, when Kenny and Joni became people, you know.
Adults.
No, teenagers.
Oh, I thought you said when they were born. They became people.
But you know,
Teenagers.
we were so afraid of the drug world.
Yeah.
We were, and now I think there's more reason to be afraid because it begins so much earlier. And we thought there might be only one way to protect them, and that's to have them become valuable to themselves. And we tell children, make your bed, do your homework. But we took him with us to do volunteer work. And
When we were very young.
very young.
Yeah.
You were 11 and Kenny was 9, something like that.
Very young.
And there was a family who advertised about a child which needed patterning, which meant that at that time, when a child had difficulties in doing things, they made them do certain movements. So we went with our great, and I remember calling and saying, could you use children as well? And they said, anybody, yes, please. So Joni would stand at one end, this little boy had to creep and crawl over and over. It was so difficult for him, he hated it. But it's to make him be able to move correctly and stimulate the brain. And Joni would stand at one end, and Kenny would stand at this end. And the
We
dog,
even had our dog volunteering.
yeah. The Great Dane would be with one. And the little boy, Craig, would creep and crawl over to that one, get to kiss the dog. Then the dog would go to the other one, and he would do that. And they did magic.
Yeah.
But they also learned that they're important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember they tried to work with seniors, and both of them couldn't do it because there would be a person, and then the next day that person might not be dead, and it might be dead. So they said, no, it's got to be with children.
Yeah. This is going to kill me because we've run out of time. And this has
Good
been
talk to you.
absolutely fantastic. We're going to have to do another update.
Yes.
So you
Just
can't
so we
go
can
you can't
visit
go
some
anywhere, you
more.
can't move or anything like that.
Stay close.
We can't thank you enough for coming out today and being with us and just doing the good that you do every day for so many people. So
If you think of it as good, then it stops being good.
all right, then
If you do it because it's
Just
there and
who
you want to do
are.
it.
Okay, it's who you are. How about that?
Yes.
All right. We'll be right back on Family Comes First.
Vincent, having them on this show, Hedy and Eric have been through so much, and it's amazing to hear how much joy and the purpose in their lives. And you know what Hedy was saying about you can't call it good, because then it's not good. It's just how you are. It was remarkable to have them here. I wish we had so much more time with them.
That's right.
Yeah,
They're close friends of mine. They are my
know.
inspiration.
I know. Yeah, they're remarkable people. And then you meet Joni and Kenny, and you
Yeah,
see
it
how
just-
could they not be this
That's
way?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, here, we hear a lot about, seniors
Yeah.
and they get to an age and they retire. There's no retirement in their life. They're not going to retire from life.
Yeah.
They are volunteering, which they've been doing for over 50 years,
Yeah.
besides raising their own family and doing the good that they do in the community. Just it's just
well,
remarkable.
And two things struck me.
Yeah.
One is how early they started with their own children. Hedy said that the kids were 9 and 11 when
Right.
they brought them in to
Yeah.
volunteer,
Yeah.
and then a lifetime of giving. And now, Eric is 90 this year. I think he
Right.
turned 90,
Yeah.
right? And they're still giving of their time in a way that's so impactful for
That's
this
right.
population.
That's
Because
meaningful. Very
meaningful. How do you parent? How do you work through anger? And to have someone, when Eric was speaking to us about how he came out of the camps with anger and had to
Right.
work through it and let it go, and to be able to share that message with the people that they're working with now in the prisons.
Yeah.
It's so valuable to be able to give.
Just so well said by you.
Yeah.
Really, right on target and
Inspiring.
let's get Father Tony in here because
Yes.
because I can't wait to hear your remarks. I just
Oh my goodness. I mean, I personally feel like I've just been on retreat watching these segments. And I have to thank you both, I mean, Vincent and Victoria, for bringing the pages back and speaking on behalf of our viewing audience to realize that I'm sure if that has impacted me, there are so many people who have watched this show today and can't wait to perhaps have them back on again. Just to be spiritually renewed by
It's
the message of
humbling,
hope,
right?
the message of making choices towards moving past anger and rage to seeing life as a gift and wanting to give that gift to others. Now, how many times I know from the pulpit I've preached to say that God doesn't want us just to be survivors, but to have abundant life, the abundant life He wants us to have. And so they're not defined, the pages are not defined as survivors of the Holocaust. They've embraced life.
They created their lives.
Yeah.
You know, that's the most inspiring thing that
that's
we were talking about Viktor Frankl and the purpose that you can define in your own life is really what we have as human beings. And they live it. I mean, humbled, inspired.
Exactly. And you know, and realizing that that's what God wants for everybody. God doesn't want us just to survive, or certainly doesn't want us to be imprisoned in our own rage. And rage itself is a prison of its own making. But He wants so much more for us. And so when we make those choices, when we're able to break out of those prisons, there is God cheering us on, as I'm sure God has cheered on the pages and is taking great delight in them.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that, because there are prisons that you are put in, and then there are prisons that you create yourself.
Exactly.
And, you know, listening to what you just said, it occurs to me that, you know, there are many ways to break out of a prison, and that's the power that we have.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it that way, but
we need more time.
we need more time.
We need more time.
Thank you for that
but
insight.
thank you
Yeah.
for that insight.
Tremendous,
So
yeah.
so I'm going to start with this conclusion, which is that for me, it's thank God for Hedy and Eric Page and their children and all that they do, and just the positive influence they have on everyone they touch. It's really a gift, a true treasure.
And to be able to have spent this time with them,
Love.
And Joni's work at the Fortune Society, which counsels in prisons and teaches the skills needed to succeed once people are out, is also invaluable. And you can find more information on that at their website, which is fortunesociety.org. And as always, you can visit Vincent's law firm's website at VJ Russo Law to see the earlier show with Hedy and Eric. This is the follow-up, and that was the original show.
That's right. Wonderful. Thanks to all our viewers for joining us. And remember, family truly does come first.
Thank you.